everyone, and welcome to another episode of Reap the Spoils. I'm Mark Sullivan.
I'm Chaos. I'm Delaila Lugo.
I'm Jason Kwasnicki.
Delilah, you seem really excited. Are you excited to talk about this game?
Yeah.
What game are we talking about?
Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin,
It's gonna
aka
be
Chaos the Game.
yes. And in the lead up to recording this episode, things were a little chaotic. We had some technical difficulties, so that was fun to work with. Very fitting. Very in line with this episode, I guess. That sure is a way to look at it. Yeah, we're talking about Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. It is the new kind of spin-off Final Fantasy game from Team Ninja. If this is a video game you have not played yet, well, you're going against the law of Reap the Spoils. Reap the Spoils is a monthly spoiler cast where we play a video game and then we come here and we talk about it and we spoil the hell out of it. So if you have not played that game, we don't want to ruin your first experience with that game. So do us all a favor and pause the episode and go play that video game, and then come back and press play, and you'll be in the perfect spot.
Indeed.
So go do that. Jason, would you agree with that assessment?
Yes.
Yeah.
If I see one fucking comment that we spoiled it for you, I swear to God.
Wow. Fucking Jason Jack Garland Kwasnicki over there. Laying down the rage.
Spoilers, God.
No.
Oh yeah, shit.
Not really a spoiler. Like,
yeah.
I thought that was like a thing that everybody knew, and apparently it wasn't.
We'll get into that. So yeah, before we go delving into Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, let's do a brief history lesson, shall we?
Yes.
Jason, you good with that?
Oh yeah.
Wow. All right. Cool. Let's do it. Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, like I said, developed by Team Ninja, who they previously developed, just to talk within the series, they previously developed the arcade fighter Dissidia Final Fantasy NT, the most recent Dissidia game that originally launched in arcades and then was later ported to PlayStation 4. And I feel like that came to PC as well. I don't remember. But more notably, Team Ninja recently, they made the two Neo games, Neo and Neo 2. But yeah, the Team Ninja primarily developed this with support from Square Enix. Major staff from Square Enix included Daisuke Inoue, Kazushige Nojima, which people will remember. He's been with Square Enix, or was with Square Enix for a long time, and responsible for a lot of Final Fantasy titles, including the scenario for Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I don't want to talk about much in this episode. We have an episode on Final Fantasy VII Remake. You should go listen to it. But also we might bring up I might bring up some very light spoilers about the ending of Final Fantasy VII Remake. So just forewarning there, if you have not played that game, I don't want to ruin that for you either. Go play that, listen to our episode on it, and then come back here. Or just, I'll try to give another warning before I talk about 7 Remake for you to skip ahead. Tatsuya Namira, because of course Nomura has to be involved with like every Final Fantasy game, except he's not involved with 16, so cool.
Involved with all my Final Fantasy woes. Him and Nojima.
Well, okay, we'll get there. And the composer Naoshi Mizuta. He was a primary composer. There were other composers like Hidenori Iwasaki and Iwasaki and Ryo Yamazaki. Also Masashi Hamauzu, I think, was had some hands in some tracks. Obviously, a lot of stuff was played off of Nobuo Uematsu's work.
He's basically like John Williams at this point.
Yeah,
it's like how with the Disney trilogy, like John Williams didn't do any work on it. It was just a bunch of his old stuff remixed by kids. Like, it's basically what this shit is.
Well, that's not
Funny.
completely true, but
I was gonna be a little bit spicy and say I had no idea there were so many composers involved because I felt like we heard the same song over and over
Well,
again.
yeah, the game does use the same battle theme really often, and it's like, I would have almost liked it if there was a different battle theme for each level, and they kind of incorporated like that. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll talk about that soon. But anyway, yeah, those are some of the key Square Enix staffers that were involved with this game. This game leaked in May 2021. I forget exactly how it was leaked. I think I remember reading a thread about it on Reset Era. But it was officially revealed a month later at E3. There were 3 demos released for it
This
in the
wasn't
lead
part
up.
of the Nvidia leaks, was it?
No, I don't think so. I think that was after
Oh,
With
this game was
with
revealed, no?
I don't remember
you
because
might,
that that
yeah,
that that had Chrono Cross and Final Fantasy 9 and some other stuff.
yeah,
Tactics, I think.
yeah. There's a tactics, supposed tactics remake or remaster. Chrono Cross is on there. Final Fantasy 9 was on there, but who knows about that? We'll see what happens. But anyway, I don't. Delilah might be right. That might have been after this. I
Yeah.
can't remember for sure, but anyway, yeah, 3 demos. One was released at E3, and then another one was released a few months later with feedback from that first one. And then we got another demo just ahead of the game that will let you play the beginning of the game and then transfer your save progress, which is always cool to see. But yeah, the game officially released on March 18th, 2022 for the PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One, and Series X and S, and PC. And that is our brief history lesson of Stranger of Paradise,
Thank
Final
you.
Fantasy Origin. Oh, I guess to go a little further, Final Fantasy 1 released in 1987 for the Nintendo Entertainment System
Oh,
and Nintendo Famicom or Family Computer.
that's when I was
So,
born.
oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
Man, cool. Anyway, the history lesson for Delilah Lugo now concluded. All right, are we ready to dig into this bad boy?
Yeah, let's do it.
Final warning: spoilers for Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin. So pause that episode, go play it, and then come back and press play. Okay. What do you guys want to talk? No, I'll open with this quote, and then we'll go into whatever you guys want to talk about first. This was a quote that ran through, I want to say, Inoue's mind when they were making this game. It's not a hope or a dream. It's like a hunger, a thirst. And I
Great.
just saw that in an interview and felt it was relevant and important because that was like their main theme for developing this game. Um, so what the hell do you guys want to open up with? The ending? Do we want to talk about that ending?
Listen. d-
Well, I feel like without saying what happens, the ending, the finale of Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker encapsulates that idea of the adventurer always in search of adventure far better than this game did.
Well, this game isn't really like about someone adventuring, It's like,
But the idea that the hero is driven to do the heroic deeds for its own sake, which is a mythological
well,
theme that goes back as far as
okay. So
Jason and the Argonauts and Achilles and all that shit.
I guess let's get into what leads us to that end. Like the very minimal information that we're given at all. Jack is searching for chaos. He wants to
The
kill
trailers
chaos.
did not lie to you. This game says chaos more than you would think based on the trailers.
And it also, I feel like it made us think that this game end to end was going to have more plot throughout,
Yes.
which you kind of expect for a Final Fantasy. And I want to preface this. I really liked this game. I really, really liked this game. I thought it was fantastic, but it's not without its faults.
Yeah.
And yeah, the fact of the matter is, like, the plot, there really wasn't any until the final parts of the game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty much once you go back to Cornelia, like all the plot. So this game like very loosely follows the plot of Final Fantasy 1. And I say very loosely because a lot Final Fantasy 1 has it is a very linear structure that's kind of masked linearity where you have to, in order to go over or across an obstacle, you have to get like a plot MacGuffin that lets you get past that obstacle, and it does that a lot.
Yeah, the first three do. It's not really until 4 that you really get an in-depth plot. I mean,
Yeah,
three kind of, but it's
I
really
would
4.
argue 2 was the start of, or the first one to have something like that, to that effect. But it's still a really early game. So, but anyway, it's like, so, and one does have like, it has like light story elements throughout, in terms of like just like monster of the day kind of stuff, right? This is your current objective, this is your current quest. And it feels almost episodic in that regard. In this game, you're just kind of going to the next level that it tells you, and fighting the 4 fiends isn't really much of anything. Like, the most important one was Tiamat, and that's because you got Sophia out of it. Um, and then you just kind of go through the motions until you go back to Cornelia, and everyone's like, "The hell? There's supposed to be 4 of you. There's 5 of you. Something's not right here." Um, but yeah, all you really know throughout the game is that Jack wants to kill Chaos, and he doesn't know why, and everyone's lost their memories. And like at the beginning of most of the levels, you get like this melodrama of like, someone starts to remember stuff, and they're like, "Oh, what's going on?" And like, it's that aspect was really disappointing.
Yeah. I
But
I feel like the writing for 75% of the game was really bad. And then like you said, at the back half it, picked up and tied things together. But
yeah,
it was the thing is, the writing was so bad sometimes that I kind of liked it. Like, I legit laughed out loud, like at his one-liners, and like when he told Sarah, I think it was Sarah, to like shut up, and he started listening to what's that artist's name?
oh, when he said, when after they met Neon,
Yeah,
and like she said something, and he's
it
like,
was Neon, right?
"Bullshit." And
Yeah,
then turns around,
exactly.
puts his AirPods in, and fucking listens to Limp Bizkit. Yeah.
Yeah, he had so many one-liners that legitimately made me laugh, but I was like, this isn't interesting until the back half.
Everyone was I remember when the last demo came out, and you could play the entire beginning of the game, everyone was throwing around the clip on Twitter of how Jack meets Jed and Ash, and like they just walk up to Jack, and they're like, all he's like, "All I know is I have to kill Chaos," and they're like, "Us too." Fist bump, and then they just enter the castle
Right.
together. Which, like, if we compare that to the original Final Fantasy, they're just 4 adventures that come together in much the same way. They just know they don't really, they just know that they all have these crystals, and they don't really know what their goal is.
Mhm.
And like, but prior to this episode, I read the Jason, I know you have this book, The
Yeah,
Memories of Light.
the first 3 novelizations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And I read the first one just to have a refresher on everything that happens in Final Fantasy 1. And like, even that, it's just like, yeah, 4 strangers, they don't remember who they are
yeah, it's bare
or any.
bones.
Yeah, and that's intentional. And so like, I didn't really look at that the opening to this game and think like, wow, this is so fucking ridiculous. It's pretty traditional in terms of
And
comparing it to the original Final Fantasy game.
to be honest, this game did not need an in-depth plot. It did not need a super detailed characterizations.
Well,
Honestly,
good, because you didn't get any.
yeah, a good. What I did get was like thing. It wasn't even bad enough to be funny at times. Like I was like, it was funny at first, and it began to wear thin,
Mm.
and then all the other problems with the game just prevented me from enjoying it.
Well,
Mm.
I guess let's go back to talking about the ending and what we come to find out. And what we come to find out is like Lufenia, a group of people that are like super technologically advanced. They are in the original Final Fantasy, but not antagonistic. They're very antagonistic in this game.
Mhm.
Mm.
Not a twist I'm crazy about, but it's another thing that I do want to point out is that this is like, Inoue has confirmed this is an alternate version, an alternate origin story of Garland. This is not
Oh,
intended to be canon to Final Fantasy 1. It's
that kind of
a
annoys me a little more.
yeah.
Yes,
Like, just commit.
I hate multiverses. I hate alternate timeline. This is why I can't. I can't handle comic book universes. Well, I should specify American comic book universes because they do all that multiverse bullshit and then argue over what's canon and what's not. And
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I feel like this, but I feel like this removes that from the equation, right? Like, it's not canon to this game; it's canon to itself, which is fine. Like, I kind of prefer this to be an alternate storyline than tying itself directly to Final Fantasy One, because Final Fantasy One, it's like,
yeah, I would be furious if this was canon.
yeah, I mean, it's a 35-year-old game. Are we really going to come in 35 years later and try to reinvent the wheel? I like to what purpose?
It is a trade off, I guess, in that,
Hmm.
like, I would I on one hand it's like it's not canon, so what's the point? On the other, I prefer it
I
just
mean,
not.
like,
I'd prefer it remain not canon, so I don't have to worry about it ever again.
I mean, the whole thing is it's an alternate story. So it's like I said, it's canon to itself, but
Right,
it's not
right.
trying to rewrite history, you know? It's just it's an alternate take on history,
I
quote
guess I
unquote.
guess that's the part that bothers me a little bit more because it's like if this is an alternative take, then why couldn't it be better? You know, like they
I
could
I
have gone
agree.
with it.
I
You know what I
fully agree.
mean?
Like,
Hmm.
why do we have these? I mean, I know why. It's because fucking Namura wants to draw his fucking belts. But why couldn't we have like actual costume designs that somewhat look like something that
Well,
might fit with fucking Final Fantasy One? Like, why couldn't we have? There's a whole host
well,
of
You know,
so
stuff.
like the
the
cowboy
whole
hats.
the whole reason for that was like it was meant to show like these guys are not of this world, and they're not. They're from Lufenia. They're from that group who has sent them in to keep the balance of light and darkness, right? But praising or detracting from those character designs, like there's not really a point because they're in the game for all
Oh,
of
I was
30
more talking
minutes,
about
you
the
know?
general aesthetic, the art design, the
Well, yeah,
armor,
and that's
armor,
because they wanted to
weapons.
have some they like
Namura likes his belts. That's why.
I mean there's not as many belts as you're claiming there
I
are, but
know. I know. I just like to dig any chance I get to
yeah,
dig
I
into
know you
it.
just want
I
to
get
shit
it.
on Nomura. And that's not without its merits. I overall like Nomura a lot because he's responsible for a lot of the things that I love, but at the same time, I do think the man has gotten he over the years he has gone a little too far in some regards with certain things, and I wish he could rein it in a teensy bit. But anyway, with the designs though, like they wanted to go for a darker take, a more mature take, and they did the same thing with Type Zero, which I never thought was too mature. I never really felt. I mean, I haven't played Type Zero in years, but I never felt it really warranted its M rating.
Hmm.
Um, all things considered, it wasn't that dark. This one,
I
they
think that was more the story of Type Zero.
yeah, but I don't even
More
remember it
yeah.
being like that dark. This one also, besides the profanity and just like the more brutal in your face like violence, which I guess is just from the fact that it's very much an action RPG. Like I don't know, it's
Well, yeah,
they
there's no
huh
blood. It's just crystals. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's not gory where it would be so dark. It still
right.
felt like I don't know.
But that was their goal, and like Nomura designing Jack, he wanted Jack to be this a very different protagonist from Final Fantasy. He wanted him to be very angry and vindictive, and just very focused on that one. He's just very one minded, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, which Jack's the only character with actual characterizations, and I do think that his arc by the end was okay.
Hmm.
Not the best, but okay.
Yeah.
Um, but okay, so like the ending, and it all comes at you really fast, right? Like
Yeah.
Lufenia is trying to keep the balance of light and darkness. These strangers are sent in to keep that balance. If the world gets too fucked up, they reset it. And at some point in one of the loops, in one of the cycles, Jack and the crew found out what was going on, collaborated with Astos, and made it so he would guide them to finding the truth out, so that
They wouldn't
Jack,
forget.
yeah, and made it so Jack could absorb the whole way that all this works is it's kind of hidden in these data reports, the Lufenia reports or whatever, that you kind of have to seek out and read and comprehend and understand, and which is a very Nomura, a very Kingdom Hearts thing.
It's also a very Nojima thing. The whole breaking your fate, breaking your destiny.
Well, and
That's a Nojima thing.
and
Going back to
spoilers for Final Fantasy VII Remake. Skip ahead about 30 seconds if you don't want to hear this. Yeah, it's exactly what they did with the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake.
this is
You
what
know,
they did with Final Fantasy 13. That's what they did. They've been doing it
yeah,
for a while,
I guess kind
and
of
it's one
with
of the
13.
reasons. Nojima's writing is one of the reasons, in my opinion. Anyway, go Yoshi P.
But okay, so anyway, yeah, there's that, but shit, where was I with the actual plot of this game?
So
The
they got
cycle,
together.
yeah, the cycle. They got together with
Yeah, yeah,
Astos. They
yeah.
plotted.
And yeah, and Jack, he the rules of like how he would absorb the darkness and whatnot, it's like all tied to people's emotions,
Hmm.
and like the distress of Cornelia. And by the way, that segment was like that was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Both like in gameplay and like finally some fucking plot. um everyone's getting murdered by these fucking monsters, and the pirates that have been like overtaken by darkness.
Right.
And like it all culminates, like Sarah dies and everyone else dies, and then your companions are like, oh, time to fuck Jack up, and you got to kill them. And that was a pretty cool moment. I actually kind of liked that and found it to be pretty emotionally affecting.
I thought it was emotionally affecting for like the people of Cornelia and for like you and your companions, but not for Sarah for whatever reason. Like when she like croaked, I was like, okay, like I didn't even know they were a thing until 2 minutes ago. So
Yeah, and I feel like the cutscenes that kind of show them as a thing happen after all that. I
yeah.
can't remember the order of operations there.
Yeah, I think you're right. They do happen after that actually.
But like, us being very in the know, like we saw trailers where they showed
Actually,
scenes
no, it
of
was
them.
like a little bit before that now that I'm remembering.
Okay.
But
But
not
like
long.
the trailers made it seem like their budding relationship was going to be much more of a thing in this game, and it was like intended for that to be much more of a thing, that as opposed to the original Final Fantasy where Garland has has unrequited feelings for Sarah. Like they actually love each other in this game, or the intention is that they love each other in this game,
Hmm.
and that never really came through. I felt
No.
like Sarah was just very underutilized completely in this game, and it seemed like she was going to play a bigger role than she actually did.
Well, that's the problem with the structure of the game. The way it
Mm-hmm.
makes it so it's kind of mission based, in and out. There's no open world.
Yeah.
There's no real interacting with characters outside of the missions.
Mhm.
So
Right.
you don't really get any opportunities more than they give you, and you interact with her a grand total of, off the top of my head, 3 times.
Yeah, probably 2 or 3. Yeah.
Something like that. 4. I think 4.
Mm.
If you
Because
include that final, yeah, I think if you include that final mission in Cornelia, it's 4.
yeah. So, and like the whole in Final Fantasy 1, you don't, after saving her, you never really have to go back to Cornelia. So like they could, like it's kind of like a thing, well, if you don't have to go back to Cornelia in the first game, well, why would you go back there in this game? But like this game isn't sharing the same exact structure as Final Fantasy 1. The Flying Fortress is like really the first fiend dungeon that you go to in this game, where it's the last in the original Final Fantasy, and it's in a completely different location. They didn't really utilize the full map
Yeah, like half
of,
the map is empty by the end.
yeah, like you never go to the top right, and that's where the Flying Fortress, if I remember correctly, is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So I don't, it's kind of weird how condensed all the levels are into like that one southern, or basically the southern hemisphere of this map. and then there's like a few in the northwest, and then that's kind of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. It's very weird. But if they want to play up this relationship, yeah, give reasons for us to have to go back to and there are points where you can go back to Cornelia and do like the talking bits with like denizens of Cornelia, but like they're optional, you know. Maybe
Right.
you have to maybe you should have to check in with everybody just to be like, oh, how's it going? Oh, it's going this way.
And you technically can check in with NPCs in between missions, but it's menu based.
Right, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
So
And
awkward. Like,
yeah, but with the way that there's no overworld and no explorable, although there are points. I mean, they're in that final big fight in Cornelia, you're running through a town. It would have been nice to be able to run around that and talk to people.
Yeah, like right
Um,
before, or instead of having those like awkward cutscenes, just let it be like an interactive moment. I
yeah.
feel like the only breadcrumb they really gave with Sarah and well, they gave like replaying it on chaos difficulty. They do give a lot of breadcrumbs to like clue in, you know, what's going on. And the only thing related to Sarah was, I think it was Jed was like, oh, so you know, how do you feel about her? And he was like, I don't have any feelings. What do you know? So like at that moment, I
Yeah.
was like, huh, like why would he ask that? Is it because she's like cute, or is it because like they're trying to play at something over here?
Hmm. Yeah, and they said something. They I think it's Jet. I think it's after you have Neon, and they talk about Jack like after he defeats something. They like talk about him like, oh, Jack's back or something like that.
Yeah.
Like they're hinting at like, oh, well, they kind of know what's going on, but he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
quite know. Um, yeah, those hints are there are hints laid early in the game. It's just there's practically nothing except for minor clues and uh very very minimal scenes like throughout the entire game that actually matter.
Yeah. My question is, at what point of the game did you guys realize that Jack was chaos? Like, did you know from the beginning, or
yeah,
was there like a
I
certain
went
point?
in. I went into the game
Well, I
thinking
mean
that that was the point.
the problem is, see, here's the big problem.
Yeah.
Is the what was it? The second fucking trailer revealed to us that his last name is Garland.
Mm-hmm.
If that hadn't happened and we
Right.
didn't know that, that would have been a really effective reveal.
Right.
But we went in the game like, you know, I think we've all played the original Final Fantasy, at least in some regard. We know who Garland is.
Yeah.
You
I feel
know?
like even if you didn't play the original Final Fantasy, you know who
Yeah,
Garland is.
Garland is a villain in someone. He's a
Well,
villain in
he's
9. It's all references to the
well,
first one out
yeah,
there.
Yeah.
Nine's Garland is different from one's Garland. You know, you could
Right.
play Nine, have a person named Garland, and not realize that he shares a name with the villain of Final Fantasy One. You know, that's not really you know,
Yeah,
anything.
the only point I'm trying to make is just that Garland it's just one of those Final Fantasy things.
Yeah, but my
Yeah.
point being is if they hadn't revealed that Jack's last name was Garland in a fucking trailer,
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
we
Yeah.
would have gone into that game not knowing that, gotten to that reveal, and found out his last name is Garland, and that's when it would have been like, oh, that's
Mm-hmm.
fucking crazy. No, we started off the game knowing that he was Garland, so like I knew that it was gonna end with him becoming Chaos.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how we were gonna get there, and it turned, and you know, this, it's interesting, and this is kind of why this game needs to be an alternate telling of Final Fantasy 1, because he's not he Jack, if anything, is an anti-hero. He doesn't want to become Chaos for bad reasons. He wants to do it to cut Lufenia off from controlling this world, and then the end goal after that is to be defeated.
Mm-hmm.
So like after he fully absorbs, how did you guys?
It's the plot of it's Elric. It's the plot of the Elric saga. Are either of you guys familiar with Elric?
Mm-mm.
Melnibide?
No.
No,
All right,
I
never
don't
mind.
even know what you're saying.
Elric, Michael Moorcock, the Elric saga. Elric
I
of
know
Melnibide,
Edward. I know Edward Elric
Stormbringer,
and Alphonse Elric.
like one of the most iconic fantasy. Okay, here or whatever.
You're cooler than me.
He was
Sorry.
basically the first fantasy anti-hero.
Okay,
But yeah,
there.
basically he dies to bring balance to the forces of chaos and order. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Yeah, there it is. And that's basically what happens here. Right. I wanted to detract real quick. What did you guys think of the final boss? How did you fare against that?
I had to change my whole build
Yeah.
to be effective, but then once I did, it was easy.
Okay.
I mean, it's really just learning the boss's moves by that point of the game, I had kind of figured out which game mechanics were useless and which I needed to actually use,
Yeah.
and how to work around the design flaws, in my opinion, at least inherent in the combat system. It's basically just you tapping circle. You
Yeah,
got to
especially
learn when
for
to
his
tap
first
circle.
Yeah.
phase. Well, his second phase too, yeah. I felt like his first phase, like you can pick up a pattern. Even if you didn't use the like steal mechanic, you could still like dodge and attack. You know, he does like a 3 combo hit and then you could attack
Mhm.
right after. But the second phase was when things got crazy where like his dark attacks would cover like a big portion of the field. And that's when I used the I think it was the Liberator that had this like infinite shield kind of.
Mighty Guard.
Mighty
Yeah.
Guard really came in handy
Right.
for that, and then I just wrecked him.
At that point in the game, I had, Dark Knight and Paladin abilities that like regen health and regen whatever it was, not mana, whatever that bar was, the
Structure.
chaos bar,
Oh,
whatever you had to expand
It
by
was your
blocking.
MP. Your MP.
Was it the same bar? Yeah.
Yeah, that it's literally it's just your MP. They use
Okay.
that for
Yeah,
all your
yeah,
special commands. I had to This was like the first time in the game where I actually felt I had to use the combat abilities, the ones where you hold L2 and
Mm.
press like a button for them.
Like the Lightbringer.
Yeah, like those. It was the
Mm-hmm.
first time in the game where I felt I actually had to use those to get past it. And like I used the one that like makes you temporarily invulnerable, and one that would let you get health from attacking.
Mm.
Right. That's what I used. Yeah.
I felt that was the first time in the game where I felt I had, because I mostly ignored those and never used them.
Yeah.
That was the first time where I felt, oh, I need to change something up here and try them. That boss gave me a lot of trouble. But I mean, I didn't even realize it was the final boss. I didn't think that was the final boss until I did it, and I'm like, oh, that was it.
Yeah, he was difficult, but why he was mostly difficult to me was not because of his fighting or whatever. It's because every mission was 10 levels above me, every single one.
Yeah.
Like I didn't replay missions at all. Like I just beeline the
No,
story.
I was in
Did you
pretty much
do
the same scenario. Although
okay.
although at that point I was not that far below, so it wasn't too big. Like it didn't take me that long to get through him.
So quick couple of questions. What difficulty did we all play on? Was it action?
Normal.
Action initially, which is normal, and then
Yeah.
eventually chaos
Chaos.
and hard. Because the problem is, once I realized I had to either farm a little bit, to make it through, and then once I had to do like trophy stuff, I didn't want to just go through the game like by myself. So I just jumped into people's worlds and I played whatever difficulty they played it on. So some people did story, some people did action, some
Oh,
people did
okay.
hard. So I got it all basically, but the main game was action.
Okay. Yeah, and I also played on action. And did you? I'm sure, Delilah, you did. Were you doing side quests throughout the game?
Yeah, I did every side quest throughout the
Okay.
game. Yeah, the ones that I picked up, because there's a few that you can miss because you have to like pick up a purple orb or something.
Yeah, Jason shaking his head. That's why I said I'm sure Delilah did, but Jason, did you play any side?
Nope.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like you would have been even more levels behind me, but I feel like the game is structured to kind of be like a Souls game where like if you die, you like refight the enemies again
No.
before you get to the
So,
next
all right.
point.
So here's the thing.
Don't sully From Software's name.
All right, no. Stop it. Because I don't want to spend this episode putting From Software necessarily on a pedestal here. Okay.
I'm not even trying to put him on a pedestal. I'm just saying it's not even in the same ballpark. Like,
Well, I don't.
which isn't to say the combat here is is all bad. I'm not trying to
Well,
say
we'll
it.
talk about it more
Yeah.
when we get to combat, but I do want to say up front, and I will bring this up again when we talk about combat. This game is not a Souls-like. It is like
No.
it's not comparable, and it shouldn't be compared as much as it is because it's fundamentally nothing like it.
It
It
plays
isn't. The
it
only
plays
reason I made that comparison, to be clear, was the enemies respawning when you die and you have to get
Yeah.
Yeah,
through
but
to them.
like
It plays more like Final Fantasy VII Remake than it does any Souls game.
yeah, and we'll all right, we'll put a pin in that and come back to it because that is a conversation I want to have. Because I frankly I'm really tired of that comparison, and I'm frankly I'm
It's how
just
people sell their games, to be honest.
I know I'm just so tired of everyone comparing their game or comparing a game to from software games
I'm with you. I'm with you.
because like y'all you can make a better comparison like there's better way there's that Twitter account that's like at like Dark Souls that just makes fun of articles and Twitter posts and whatever they see comparing like blank to Dark Souls.
Hmm.
So like when the Crash Bandicoot trilogy came out and people were calling it the Dark Souls of platforming, yeah, they made fun of that because
Yeah,
that
well,
shit is so stupid.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like hard
Wait.
doesn't equal Dark Souls.
Yeah, I know. But not to get too
Like
off
Ninja
topic.
Gaiden's harder. Let's be real. Anyway.
Yeah. All right. To double back. So yeah, final boss. I just want to know you guys' thoughts on the final boss. But yeah, after becoming chaos, the Lufenians they sever from that dimension, which kind of isolates this continuity, as it were. Jack gets sent back 2,000 years in the past, kind of the last reset of the loop, so to speak. And there's his companions, and they become his four fiends, and they lay the groundwork for the actual Warriors of Light to show up and save the world, as it were. Which his whole like Jason, you brought up with whatever story you brought up. I already don't remember the name.
What
He's
Elric?
yeah,
Yeah, Elric. He goes around with a chaos sword that eats the souls of people, but he's got to bring balance to order and chaos. How
yeah.
have none of you ever heard of Elric? Jesus
I don't know,
Christ!
man. Apparently, we live under rocks.
Literally, The Witcher is plagiarized from
I
Elric.
guess we live under L rocks. Am I right? Um.
Elric, it's a name. It's a British name. Michael Moorcock is British.
All right. Anyway, yeah, he's still he's an anti-hero, right? Like he's doing bad things with good intentions, and I think that was a cool twist on it. But like I said, they intended for this to be a separate, an alternate storyline, and I'm glad for that because with 35 years later, we shouldn't try to make the Garland of Final Fantasy 1 try to be redeemable. Like at the end of the day, he was just
Mm.
an
True
evil a
hero of
knight that
your own story.
yeah, he's just a knight that got corrupted and became bad and sought power and became chaos.
It's
And
also it's also hard to like. Well, I guess it is his it's just hard to attribute it as like his primary motivation when he only remembers it like in the last 5 minutes of the game. Like,
yeah, and that's kind of where I wish that we had like a instead of this subversive story, like give us some reason or motivation that he would become bad and then introduce the time loop and then have that ending or something. I don't know. I it just there wasn't really I don't feel like it was it was an effective motivation. Well, by the end I felt it was, but there was no build up to it, right? Like I almost would have preferred a story where he falls from grace of some sort and like we get that story, you know?
right.
Maybe something bad happens between him and Sarah and the time loop comes back or sends him back and again, I don't want to talk about the game for what it isn't. I just I wish there was more story throughout. That's really my problem.
100%.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's kind of it
I
about
mean,
that.
to like you know, every time we have these podcasts, Mark always like lists out characters, right? So we can talk about them. I really have nothing to say about anyone except
Yeah.
Astos, maybe.
I mean,
Yeah.
to use the Red Letter Media challenge, name something about any of these characters that isn't related to their job or what they do in the world. Tell us
Yeah.
about them as if you didn't know anything about Final Fantasy.
Yeah, and I think that's a shame. Final Fantasy, they always have great characters, and there is nothing interesting about Ash, Jed, Neon, or Sophia. They are all pretty much the same person,
Yeah.
and that's a shame. Like I brought up, I read the memories, the Final Fantasy 1 novella. It's 1, 2, and 3. I just read the 1 for 1 in preparation for this. They gave those blank slate characters personality
Hmm.
in that story. You know, they made the war, like, it's the warrior, the thief, the white mage, and the black mage, and they
Yeah.
made, like, you know, the warrior a very brash leader. They made Zolver really cocky, and like they gave these characters that don't even talk in the original Final Fantasy so much personality,
Yeah.
and I really appreciated that from a storytelling perspective. There's nothing interesting about Ash, Jed, Neon, or Sophia, and that just sucks.
Yeah. They tried to give Jed like Prompto vibes, and I was listening to What's Good podcast, and Alexa Ray Korea said he's like basically Walmart Prompto, and I thought that was the perfect explanation.
That's
Like,
that's an insult you do not want. Like being compared to Prompto is already bad enough. A Walmart Prompto.
Wait, whoa, what's wrong with Prompto?
You don't want to be compared to any of those characters, my man.
Why?
We've had this. We don't need to have the Final Fantasy 15 conversation.
I think we do.
Did
In
we
another
do
episode, I think
did we
we
do
did.
it? We did. Okay, we did. Okay.
Not
Yeah, we
not
did.
for this
And
show.
and
Not for this show.
Not for this show. But
Hmm.
The character, I can't talk to you right now. I have to. Shit, I have to talk to you right now. But wow,
My favorite was the cook anyway, so I'm not hurt.
the characters of 15 were the best part of that game.
that's not saying that much.
Oh, stop it! All right, going back to Stranger in
Look,
Paradise.
I had the rose tinted glasses, or not rose tinted.
No,
I had the hype motion glasses on too.
no,
at
we're
the
not.
time,
We're
but
not
in
having.
retrospect.
We're not having this argument. I think you and I both need to replay Final Fantasy 15. Maybe we should do a Spoilercast redux of that game someday. Now that why not? Now that it has all the DLC, we could play all the DLC. We could come back, have a
Great.
cup
Oh,
of
they
tea.
finished the game finally.
All right, we're okay. We're getting off track.
But wait, you have to watch the movie. Don't worry about it.
Actually, they didn't finish the game. They stopped coming out with all the DLCs they planned. But that's
Well, no,
another story.
they did finish. Hold on, they did finish the game. They wrote a book.
Oh my
to finish the
god.
game.
Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus.
I didn't
Christ.
even know that actually.
Yeah, there's a book to finish the game.
You have to watch a movie to start the game and then read a book to finish the game. Excellent.
They should have just let Nomura have his musical.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted.
Anyway.
He wanted to make Final Fantasy 15 a musical.
Anyway, okay. Back to Stranger in Paradise. I'm so sorry. Astos, yeah, he is the one companion character that it kind of is worth talking about, and like his story is like pretty tragic. He and Jack had like a pretty good bromance.
Yeah, I felt bad about that
Astos
actually.
is probably the best written part of this game. Yeah.
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 He had
like, he comes across as like your typical kind of androgynous villain type, right? Like you don't really know. I mean, you might know, but like the way they're presenting him was that way. But then he turns out to be like this really tender, like, you know, just like hurt boy. And I felt so bad for him.
definitely a great glow up from like the evil elf imp thing that he is in Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah.
I do really like the design they went with for him, and his character is definitely, you know, a drastically different character from his Final Fantasy 1 counterpart, but I thought it was really effective, and you know, the bromance him and Jack had. You're doing the fight, and like you get the flashback and the fist bump, and it's like, oh shit, that's gonna
Right.
bring a tear to my eye, and then you gotta fight like some big abomination. Yeah, that was cool. That was something.
And it makes sense, like why, like I almost feel like his origin story is better because like he got overcome by emotion because he was just tired of like his homie forgetting him all the time, and they had like a
Right.
plan, and the plan kept getting ruined because I mean not that, and he knew it wasn't Jack's fault, but he just felt crushed by the whole thing that of course he's gonna like go into that big deep dark monster form. That made more sense than, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it was a neat subversion because I definitely went into the Western Keep to meet Astos, towards the beginning of the game, expecting to fight Astos and move on from Astos, and like, no, he persists and he continues being, throughout the game, and you meet with him after you restore every crystal and talk to him and figure out where to go next. And obviously that plays into the plot. His whole goal was to guide you along, but like I definitely didn't expect that, and it really threw what I knew about Final Fantasy 1 out the window.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought Astos was cool. We is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about with the Lufenians? I feel like we covered most of it. And yeah, I mean, and Chaos wasn't really, it more than anything in this game, like more than even Final Fantasy 1, it was just like kind of this dark energy that overtook Jack.
You send dark energy to fight dark energy, like
Basically, I guess you could look at it that way.
yeah, I'm like, what? How do you know the
Jack,
other dark energy is not gonna go off the fritz too?
man, Jack is already dark energy incarnate. Combine him with more, and you get chaos.
You guys don't see the video, but like Jason's just shaking his head this whole time.
Why he's too busy shaking his head to talk. That's why you haven't heard him talk for like a good 3 minutes or so. You okay, Jason?
Yeah, no, I'm fine. It's just, honestly, it's like we've kind of said all you can say about the story because that's pretty much it.
Well, it's funny because like leading up to this, I even like read up a lot of interviews
We
and
just
articles.
saved everybody listening who hasn't played 25 hours of their life.
No, because at the end of the day, I still think this game was good. I still think it's worth playing. It's just if you're playing for the story, you're gonna be I feel like you're gonna be a little disappointed.
Unless you don't know that Jack is.
Unless but at this point, if you're listening to the show
Right.
and you didn't know, well, you know now, motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know who he is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, this whole episode could be, or this whole first like 45 minutes or so could be summed up in stop spoiling shit in trailers.
Oh my god, it reminded me of that
Stop.
time that they spoiled Jedi Fallen Order at the Super Bowl. I was like, what? Bro, like that was such a cool moment.
Go listen to our Jedi Fallen Order episode. We complain about that. I complain about that, especially because I don't think I had beaten the game by that point.
Yeah.
So I got spoiled on something big, and I was really mad about it.
Right.
Okay, but like Square Enix is like, not even Square Enix. I can't even just put it on them. Like Kojima fucking spoiled like all of Metal Gear Solid 5 and like a good bit of Death Stranding. Although Death Stranding had a lot of surprises that weren't in the trailers. But like showing all that stuff in trailers, and then with Square showing like so much of Final Fantasy 15 in trailers, so much of Kingdom Hearts 3 in trailers, to the point where that game felt like it had no new plot to see if you watched every trailer leading up to it.
Yeah.
It just stop showing shit in trailers. That's gonna give it away. Like, I don't know, I call me crazy, but I don't think revealing that Jack's last name was Garland in the trailer was going to get that many more people to be immediately interested in this game.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Yoshi P played it pretty smart with the Final Fantasy 14 Endwalker trailer.
Well, Final Fantasy 14 is like a totally different beast. Those trailers, most of the stuff that happens in those trailers doesn't even happen in the game.
I know that's my point. I was just trying to dunk on the fact that Yoshi P, please make Final Fantasy great again.
Yeah. Since the last time we talked about a Final Fantasy game was 7 Remake, and since then Jason and I have both fully caught up on 14, a game that we were very, very behind on, and very much are aware of Naoki Yoshida's prowess in storytelling, and not just to put it all on him, but him and his team of writers, his team of developers. They're very, very good. We're very excited for 16. But anyway,
Yeah.
but I don't even think it comes down to Yoshi P. I don't even think it comes down to that. I just think, like, I don't think it was a team decision. It was very much a marketing decision, and I just don't do that. Don't spoil shit like that, because it's just going to leave your fans, it's going to leave your players dissatisfied by the end. I would have loved to not, and you don't have to watch a trailer. No one's forcing you to watch a trailer. But like in the day and age we live in, you don't watch a trailer, 5 minutes later you go on Twitter and you see everyone talking about it. It's
Yeah.
really hard, even if you don't watch the stuff. It's if you're on the internet, it's really hard to dance around that kind of thing.
Right.
So I don't know, just keep it close to the chest and let the game speak for itself.
Yeah. I mean, people were going to talk about chaos and how much it was said in the trailer anyway. You didn't need to
Yeah, I mean, like, and that first trailer did this game absolutely no justice, I feel, because it was just so edgy and just like said the word chaos like way too much, and like it became the laughing stock of the internet. And like the final product, it had a lot of that edge. It had a lot of uttering of the word chaos, but like it really wasn't that. It wasn't as edgy as that first trailer made us think it was going to be.
I actually thought it was more edgy
Well,
in the
okay, well,
beginning
there you
at
go.
least.
Well, yeah, in the beginning, but I don't
But
know.
as a whole, you're right.
Yeah, like the trailer after that showed a much more interesting game, and then oh man, the Frank Sinatra trailer. We haven't even talked about like
Oh my
the
god.
use of Frank Sinatra's "My Way,"
In the end credits and everything.
which I thought was great. Unironically, loved
The
that.
same way I feel about Stand By Me. Like, oh my god.
I mean, yeah, granted, I don't think licensed music is necessary in a series that's known for its music.
Exactly. It's licensed music is anathema to Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
Right.
but I didn't mind it, and I thought it was it was a nice moment, like at the end when those doors opened up and like it was light peering through and you see the classic like Warrior of Light armor silhouetted against that light and the song kicked in, I was like, I got chills, man. Like that was kind of cool.
I actually
I don't
liked the second song they played in the ending more. I felt like that song gave me more chills.
Okay. Well, I mean, like,
Not licensed.
yeah. It is what it is. It's definitely weird. Definitely weird to use Frank Sinatra for a game like this, but
Yeah.
Whatever. Also made it so you couldn't record, at least not on your console, because
Yeah, streams. I know streams were getting.
yeah. How was that for
Yeah.
streaming, Delilah? Were you streaming?
I
that?
didn't stream it. No, I was
Okay.
too busy playing Elden Ring. I had to have an
Oh,
off-stream game, so that Final Fantasy was. I played it like in the beginning. It was fine. But yeah, I thought about uploading the ending because I did record it, but then ultimately I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Rather just talk about it here.
Yeah. Talk about it. I'll reap the spoils. Get our hot takes. Okay. I mean, yeah. Is there anything else to talk about the story
No.
that you guys want to talk about?
The only thing is, I loved when you go to I think it was the crystal level, and then Neon was all like, oh, look, there's crystals over there. And Jack was like, where there's crystals, there's chaos. I fucking cried. I was like, yo.
Some fucking Kingdom Hearts level shit, man.
No, that's not Kingdom Hearts. That's just like B-movie level camp, man.
Exactly.
That's like, that has more in common with Resident Evil than it does Kingdom Hearts.
No, Resident Evil. Well, it depends which Resident. If you're talking about
early
like
early Resident Evil, yeah, like
one
through
RE4.
I'm talking like 1 through 4.
Yeah, those quips in 4 had more panache a piece than all of the dialogue in this game put
Well, man,
together.
you cannot talk down on the brilliance that is the line that Delilah just said.
Or when I forget what boss, or maybe it was Astos actually. Astos was like explaining everything, and this was before he knew Astos was his homie. And he like gives him the hand, and he was like, "Stop right there! I don't care. I just want to know how do I kill Chaos or something like that."
Or when he's meeting Lich, and Lich starts to introduce himself, and Jack's like, "I don't give a fuck who you
Yeah,
are," and punches him in the
that was like
face.
one of the best. Yeah.
Oh, it's so it's so
It was
ridiculous.
nostalgic a little bit. Like I haven't felt like I experienced dialogue like that in a really long time.
Yeah, like it's a game that's like simultaneously like it's both taking itself too seriously and then not taking itself seriously at all.
Yeah.
And you just you can't help but laugh and just enjoy it for what it is. And I still stand by, like, I wish there was more plot in the middle, not just at the beginning and at the end, but
Oh,
like
sure. Yeah, sure.
Hmm.
it's still just like goofy as hell, and you can't help but smile at stupid shit like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still liked it. I thought it was a great game. Um, but we're not done talking about it.
Yeah.
We're not done talking
No,
about this game in the
because
slightest.
it is a game.
It is a game, and games have gameplay. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about the levels, because this was like probably my favorite thing in the entire game. How each level, and like it was really cool, the loading screens would give you a little blurb as written. I'm pretty sure, I don't know that it's ever explicitly confirmed, but I think all of those are intended to be in the voice of Astos.
Mm.
Well, like the Fool's Missive and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm talking, yeah, and the loading screens, how they each have
Yeah.
like a text blurb. I think they're supposed to be from Astos's voice.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be him like recording shit so that you don't forget. Yeah.
Yeah. Um and I really liked those, because it was like it was both taking us to Final Fantasy 1 locations, but also, or at least some of them, but also telling us this is going to be the inspiration behind this level, and they were all from other Final Fantasy games.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So like the first one you go to, besides after Chaos Shrine, the first one you go to is Pravica, these like pirate caves, and that's from Dimension 14. And it's, Jason, you know this very well, it's modeled after Sastasha, the
Yep.
first dungeon in Final Fantasy 14. It's got like the colorful coral and the caves, the pirate ship at the end. It's supposed to be Sastasha, or like, modeled after it. And they incorporated that into the lore, and I think that's really fucking cool. And we got to
Hmm.
see lots of, and not only just the level design and how it looks, but how the music incorporates motifs from the games that it's from that it's inspired by. So Referent whatever it's called, Referent Waterfalls or something like that, that's based on Sunlit Waterscape from Final Fantasy 13, and incorporated the music from that level in 13 into incorporated the motifs into the music for the level here.
Yeah, and like
And
the Earth place very much looked like it could be the deserts of what do you call it from Final Fantasy 12.
oh, the
Shit.
what the you're talking about the Earth Temple.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that was supposed to be the Tomb of Wraithwall from 12.
Yes, yes.
And and I also liked how all the levels had like their own, like they didn't feel the same in their design. They all had like kind of like their own little unique mechanic or gimmick to them. Early ones that come to mind are like the Western Keep, modeled after the a palace towards the end of Final Fantasy 2, or a fortress towards the end of Final Fantasy 2, and how there's like a cannon firing at you, and you kind of got to like duck behind cover and make your way towards it so you can stop the enemies from shooting at you.
Mm-hmm.
um
They had
and
ones where you had to like change the weather with an
yeah,
orb.
that's what I was about to bring that up with the Final Fantasy 13 level. Like, yeah, you have to change the weather so you can get past certain obstacles. um
There was another one where you had to like move the crystal to and like use magic on it to like unlock a hidden bridge.
Yeah, that was the Crystal Tower
Yeah, the
level.
Crystal Tower. Yeah.
Yeah, Final Fantasy three's Crystal Tower. You know,
Hmm.
I thought I loved all of that. I loved all the level homages that they were paying to other Final Fantasy games and figuring out like which or finding out which area from that Final Fantasy game they were using. I loved it. I thought it was so cool.
That's really cool. My only problem with the level design is that like everything looked the same, so I often got lost,
Hmm.
and I hate that shit. I hate when I'm spending time like running around trying to figure out like what path I've already been down, and I can't figure out if I've already been down it because it looks just like the other path I
I
already
think
been down.
with
Especially,
some
that was it the last level where no, it wasn't the last level. It was like the second to last level where you're just going up that spiral staircase over and
Yeah.
over again, and then there are the teleporters, and you got to know if
Yep.
you hit the specific, yeah, and if you miss something, you got to go all the way back
And
down
yeah, the
and
structure of each floor looks like very like almost the same to the other
identical,
one. Yeah.
identical, yeah.
I feel like that that could have been remedied by having some sort of map.
Yeah,
You
map
kind of
or
had to
even
map
like
everything out in your head.
just a little more details in the environments, like visual indicators.
Yeah, like yeah, something to like landmarks to give yourself to give your mind like a visual to know,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, I guess that's fine.
And
I
also, I mean, the game looked so bad. Like it was like it looked like smudged. Everything was so smudged, and
I
like the
mean,
color scheme sometimes. Like I had to fight this boss in like a brown area, and the boss was brown, and the poison it let out was brown, and I was just like, oh, it was like really difficult on the eyes.
I never felt that way personally. I thought I do think that the game looks a lot better now than it did when we got that first demo.
Yeah.
I think that first demo, it looked very ugly. It didn't perform very well, and they have clearly done a lot of optimization and improvements or improving to make that to make it look better, to make it perform better. Obviously, there's a like a lot of games, there's a performance and a resolution mode, so um, you kind of pick your poison. Do you prefer one or the other? But yeah, I don't know. I thought it looked okay. I get like your whole feeling about getting lost, and there were a couple times where I did that too. But I also don't want guidance all the time. You know, I got lost in the Final Fantasy 11 level. I forget the hell it was called, but like I got lost in that quite a few times. But it also felt like, you know, I was trudging through a dungeon, and like that's that there's some merit to that. You know, you don't know what's going to be around the next corner, and I appreciated that. And there's like secrets to find by blowing up certain walls, and you know, it felt like I was exploring something, not like I was being guided through something.
Right.
Hmm.
So I liked that aspect.
Yeah.
Um,
I was
Yeah.
gonna say something else about the level design and I just lost it.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
If you think of it, bring it up. Um, what else did we want to talk about? Well, I guess we can move on from unless you think of like yeah, like I said, if you think of it, let us know. But you guys want to talk about the combat?
Oh,
Oh, what's up?
sorry, I just remembered. I know like you hate the Dark Souls comparison, and there's probably other games that do this.
Okay.
But the shortcut system I really love. I love that shit in games. Like any game that has a shortcut
Yeah.
system where you're going through a level and you loop around and you find a door that helps you like if you die get there quicker. Dark Souls does that a lot.
It's
This game
Metro.
does it.
You don't even have to say Souls. It's Metroidvania
It
design.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
Metroidvania, yeah. But except like you're not necessarily getting like a item upgrade to access the area, whereas
No, you're
Metroidvanias
just
do. It's just
yeah.
kind of like a key or,
Not
you see
not
the door from the other side.
it's not always I don't even know that it's a Metroidvania thing, but like that is in other games where it's just like once you get to the right side of something, you can unlock a shortcut to get
Yeah.
back. Like I know what you're saying though.
Yeah. I
But
I
you
I
know,
I just love that in all games,
okay.
period. And
Yeah, and
this
some
game did it.
and yeah, and some of the levels like the Final Fantasy Nine's Poison Forest or the Evil
The
Forest,
Evil
like
Force. Yeah.
it used a lot of those. That was like a big shtick for that level specifically was going around a big loop, unlocking a shortcut to go back down to like the save orb, and then going back up and continuing through.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reused save spots by creating a big loop and a shortcut to get back to it. And stuff like that I really liked. It's not the only level to do that, but it's the one that comes to mind the
Yeah,
most.
yeah. There were a few that did that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I just can't think of any other game off the top of my head that does it like than Souls games in that way.
Speaking of Souls games, let's circle back to let's circle back to this. The combat.
Yeah. So I'll say
No,
this.
it's not like Souls at all.
I know. We're gonna get to that, or I want to get to that. It's just that's the comparison that is made all the fucking time.
So when I first played the demo, I definitely compared it to Dark Souls because the demo was freaking hard, right? Like
Yeah,
you
it
didn't
was.
have like your upgrades and things like that in place, like where you could choose like all your armor and all your like your classes and whatever. You were stuck with like whatever the demo gave you, or whatever you chose to unlock
You
in the demo.
and you could do all that stuff in the demo. It just it was more limited.
Yeah, and I meant like the very, very first demo, by the way, like
No, I
not
know, I
even the
know, I
better
know.
ones.
Yeah.
And so by the time you got to the first boss, it was like pretty unforgiving. Like you would take a lot of damage. Like you weren't able to spec your character in the way that you could in the main game. Um, where it feels more like a Final Fantasy game where like you level up, you spec your character the way you want it, then you're gonna like, fly through it maybe. But the first time I played the demo, it was definitely challenging where I felt like I needed to time my dodges like methodically and like I couldn't just like hack and slash away. And although that's still the case in the main game, I feel like it's a lot more like you could like hack and slash your way through like most of the enemies and even some bosses and like you know, like if you have like a I don't know marauder build, you can maul through bosses like without a problem. There's a lot more like RPG elements to it, and less like you have to actually have like amazing timing and things like that.
Yeah, it's not trying to be a super technical challenging
It's
experience.
not,
It's
yeah.
it's just trying to be the heart of what even From Software's games are. Action role-playing games.
Hmm.
That's all it's trying to be, and it does like I think a fairly good job at it. The whole thing that bothers me and why this game is called a Souls-like. Personally, I don't really view Souls-like as a real genre. I think it's made up. I don't think it's real. Um because what we're talking about is just like a combination of very specific mechanics, and those mechanics aren't really new to that game or that subgenre, as it were. And this game doesn't really share any of them anyway. The whole thing
No,
where you go and you stop at a save point and you like it respawns the enemies. I mean, like uh, if you think on like any other Final Fantasy game that like uses random encounters, I mean, it's not quite the same thing, but it functions the same way. You save your game, you restore your health, you walk around, and you might run into enemies again. It's basically the same shit. Um, really, that it's harder because if you in older games, if you even if you don't save, like the enemies will still spawn, and in
Right.
this, if you don't save or don't stop at that thing, anything you killed isn't there anymore. But like like Jason brought up earlier, 7 Remake had the same thing where not where enemies respawn, they more so respawn if you just go far enough away and then go back. It just isn't really an effective comparison to me, just in that regard. There's nothing that you lose when you die. There's nothing you have to
Yeah.
reclaim when you go back.
Right.
combat itself also is just combat in this game. Like one of the reasons I make the 7 remake comparison is emphasis on is resource management. Yeah, resource management, I guess, would be the right term.
How you're
Versus
building up your MP and then using special attacks,
and
kind of like
and the emphasis on using the soul, whatever they call it, soul shield, soul whatever, to
Mhm.
build up the MP gauge and do the chaos attacks.
Which is essentially
I
just
don't
a quick
even
parry.
I don't even know why they had blocking and parrying in this game when they should have just anyway. Versus say Dark Souls or Elden Ring or what have or Sekiro kind of optimize like is the penultimate of the focus on positioning, timing, iframes. That's I mean obviously you still have your health bar. You still have your stamina and whatnot in those games, but the emphasis on the design of the combat and the encounters is very much on your character's positioning, your strategy, therefore, and the timing in terms of your dodging, how you. Delilah knows what I'm talking about. As opposed to this game where you're very much focused, like Mark, you just said, on building up those meters in the same way you were building up meters in Remake. And aside from that, you're really just hacking and slashing
Right.
and hitting circle over and over again, either to, you know, deflect and build up that meter or crush enemies in a over the top little sequence that gets old really fast.
Yeah.
At least it goes quickly. It
Yes, at
only
least it
lasts
goes
like two
for yeah,
seconds.
at least it goes quickly.
But yeah, like it's not trying to be like super technical, super precise or anything. It's just fun, quick, fast-paced combat.
Yeah.
And I think where it shines is something that isn't in Souls games at all, and that's its job system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You have uh, how many jobs was it? Like 30 unique jobs?
Yeah,
yeah.
something like that.
And they do play pretty differently,
The
it's
progression system here is probably the best part of the game.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
really fucking cool. Um what were your guys some of your favorite got there? What were some of your guys' favorite jobs?
Samurai.
I liked like Marauder, Berserker, and like mixing it up with Sage just to have that like
Yeah.
that exploit enemies' weaknesses with elements.
Samurai.
Dude, you always like the
You're a
samurai.
weeb.
I am a weeb. Shut up.
Dude,
Don't make fun of me.
I
It's a compliment.
really
I'm a fellow weeb.
the fucking sage job was so cool. Being
Yeah.
able to have all the white magic, all the black magic,
I
being
didn't
able to
bother with
switch.
magic. Magic was so clunky in this game.
Oh, I thought it was great.
No,
I thought it was
because
clunky at
there's no
first
way. There's
too.
no way to fucking cancel. You hold it and it just
Yeah, there
expands.
is.
And how do you cancel?
I think you just press the circle button.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
That would
But
have been good to know.
but it was clunky in terms of the timing. Like if you wanted to do an arrow versus an arrow aga, you had to
Yeah,
like get
hold it.
off the
Yeah,
button
it,
quick enough.
it was the same problem I had with using magic in again Final Fantasy VII Remake, where and then well, there actually I don't remember here if you do you lose the MP if the cast gets if you get knocked out of the cast.
No.
No,
All
only
right.
if you cast
Well,
it.
if you've already started to cast it, yes, because
Okay.
when you
So
start to
yeah,
cast it, like once
then,
you release the button,
It casts it,
that's
yeah.
that's when the MP's used, and if it gets interrupted, then you're SOL. But like I don't know, it's there's a trade-off, right? Because the magic spells in this game are really fucking powerful. So when you go to use one, you'd better be sure it's gonna work.
Yeah.
It's a trade-off that makes sense in my opinion, and I never particularly felt that it was cheap in that like it felt too unfair and not your fault when like a spell doesn't hit or goes awry, especially when there's a targeting system which mostly makes sure that your stuff connects. And like Eve
oh, I'm not talking. Yeah, no, I'm not talking about like missing or anything like that. It's more
Okay.
aggro and hitting the left and right D-pad furiously, trying to tell my guys to draw aggro by doing their attacks,
Yeah, and
and they
that's
don't do what I fucking tell them to do because they've dog shit AI,
well, I
just like
guess I
in
guess
Remake.
on the topic of the I don't think well okay the AI in Remake wasn't great, but that's because you're not supposed to rely on the AI.
You're supposed to switch, yeah.
But here
Supposed to
you can't.
switch.
But here you can't
Right.
switch.
And
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
this, until you tell them to do something, they don't do a lot. And then even then when you do tell them, hey, attack, use your abilities and stuff, it's a little inconsistent on like what they'll do, how much they'll do, etc. But like I didn't think like when you do tell them to actually do something, they can lay the smackdown on pretty good. It's just
Yeah.
you're hoping that the AI decides
Oh,
to
when
lay
they
the
just
smackdown.
when they decide to use their abilities, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's like a cooldown for using their
Mhm.
abilities, which is weird because there's no cooldown for using your own. But whatever.
Um.
Like, you have to build it up, right?
Well,
But
yeah.
if they have a full bar and you command them to do, like, the
Yeah.
special attack, you can't keep doing it until they run out of their bar. You have to wait until the cooldown.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
It would have been it almost would have been nicer if we had like some way if you like hold down the D-pad like on the right and could give a specific command to each person. That would have probably been a better way around it, to tell
Because
them.
if you're playing with people, they can spam their special attacks,
Yeah.
right? So it's almost better that way. Like, it's cool, like, comboing, like, special attacks with people,
Mhm.
when you're playing, but you can't do that in single player mode.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll agree. Like, yeah, they should have given some way and really, there's not really many ways to customize your party members. You can give them new equipment, and they have a few jobs that they can get, but like overall, you can't like give them specific command abilities or anything. And then, like, yeah, because you can't really tell them what to do. And I feel like that would have been really welcome and really nice.
Yeah.
Just have a little more control over what your party members are doing.
Yeah.
Overall, they're just kind of AI controlled, and you're at the whims of what they decide to do when they decide to do it.
Yeah, but there were a few times that, like, I was in the red and I had no more potions, and I just
Mhm.
kept commanding them to do their special attacks, and they got the job done, and I would just stood back, like, having my shield up or whatever, my block
Yeah,
button.
I
yeah.
guess the problem I actually ran into more because I just stopped. I mean, I would hit the button, but I would kind of stop trying to rely on them. One issue I kept running into was, and this is particularly when it comes to boss fights, if you die because of the way the aggregation of your bar works in terms of its max threshold for your
Mhm.
MP. So whenever I would reach a boss, I might lose because I didn't know a mechanic or something, and then I would respawn with like not even enough bar to be able to do one move.
Hmm.
So you basically have to try to rebuild the bar all over again by blocking.
Yeah.
And I found that 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 soul block, is that what it was called? Soul
So
block,
I think it was Soul Shield. I think you
Yeah.
soul
were right the first
shield.
time. I think it was Soul Shield.
Yeah, it could be very hit or miss. Uh, and to be fair, a lot of the game, I was under the impression it wasn't. Maybe I skipped over a tutorial or something. I was holding it. I didn't realize there was like a meter that was getting exhausted. So I was
Yeah,
Hmm.
wondering why it
it
wasn't
uses
working.
MP.
Yeah, I was confused at first how it worked, but it builds so little meter and you have to block so much to build it up. I mean, the way you build it up usually throughout the majority of the level is killing enemies with the soul attacks.
Mhm.
Um, so when you get to a boss, if you lose on that first fight, which you're probably going to do if you don't know the mechanics, and then you restart with a minimal bar, you can't really rebuild it that much just by blocking boss attacks, especially if you're trying to also learn the mechanics at the same time. Like,
I mean, really, the best way to build it up is to be offensive, not necessarily defensive. So hitting the boss would regain you would get you some MP.
I'm talking about expanding the maximum of it, though.
Oh, well, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
That's fair.
I'm
Because you
I'm
do
not
have
even
to use
talking
that.
because if you have when you respawn, it starts you with so little, and it's
Yeah,
like
like 2 or 3.
And I did
the only really effective way, and I never did it because I didn't want to waste the time, is going back in the level and killing mobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I felt like having your max MP increased was like it was kind of inconsistent. Maybe I just wasn't paying like too close attention to
I,
it.
I don't even know why they did it. Like, why did you have that mechanic? Just keep the MP bar constant. Like,
Yeah. I guess because they want to have some reward for utilizing because soul like using Soul Shield to deflect an attack is more it's more challenging than there's a higher risk higher reward for doing that over just blocking, right? So I guess they wanted to have
yeah, but
that dichotomy.
it's negligible. I mean, you lose some health, but
No, it's not, because that's how I was able to beat the first boss was using the hell out of Soul Shield because
Yeah.
it also
That's what I'm saying is using social.
hold
There's no reason
hold
to use
on,
normal
hold
block.
on. Well, no, not necessarily because it drains your MP, but if you have the timing right, not only will you gain some MP and increase your max MP, but it affects the structure gauge of the thing you blocked too. It lowers it. Because that's how I was able to beat the first boss like without much issue, and how I was able to beat it when the first demo came out and it was even harder, and I did it on hard difficulty then. I used Soul Shield because that, and I used that every time he would attack me, to be defensive and to break his structure gauge, so it was a little easier than just trying to attack him and find openings to hit him.
Yeah, I mean, it is confusing, especially initially. Like, oh, there's a block, and there's also like a soul block. You know, it's like, wait,
Yeah.
what?
I
But
yeah. By the second level, I never even used regular block. I was always using
Oh,
Soul
I
Shield.
still did,
yeah,
but I used Soul Shield more when I could. Go ahead,
I
Taylor.
actually only use the soul shield mechanic when I wanted to absorb like an element and use it against the enemy.
Yeah.
Once I wrap my head around it in that way, like, oh, soul shield is like more like a parry and block is more like a block, then
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I could get
And
down with
hey,
this.
can we talk about how cool of a fucking mechanic that was? I really dug that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Grabbing enemy attacks and using them against them.
Yeah, which made the thief class feel a little bit like useless
Well, that's a
because
blue mage. That's a blue mage thing.
yeah, but it's like they
But
could steal a little more than it, but you could steal as any class. So I'm like, well, I might as well have all this other cool shit and be
wait,
able to.
could you? Oh, you mean because you could do the parry thing?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
could just
but
steal
like,
the elements anyway.
I guess because the well, also let's remember that well, Thief was an advanced job, right? It was the one after Duelist.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, I mean, I wouldn't say it was useless because like it's a guarantee. It's a guarantee you use MP and you grab an enemy ability.
Hmm.
Whereas there's not necessarily a guarantee that you'll deflect one effectively when they use it, or that they'll even use one at all. You know.
Hmm.
So like I get it. I just personally didn't like using the daggers very
Yeah.
much as a weapon. So I didn't really like using the duelist or the thief jobs much.
Right.
I loved ninja, but you could use other weapons as ninja,
Right.
and that job was fun as hell. Yeah, I didn't say my favorite jobs. I mean, I really like Sage.
Yeah.
Um, what else? I liked Ninja a lot. I thought Ninja was a really, really fun job.
The
And
Poltergeist was pretty fun too. You just punch the shit out of everything.
oh, Pugilist.
Pugilist.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it poltergeist?
Poltergeist, Jesus.
You haunt the shit out of your enemies. um yeah, I really liked the Berserker. I
Mhm.
thought I enjoyed that one a lot. Just going berserk and fucking shit up, doing like super bad damage. You just got to be careful that you don't lose your health because you can't use potions.
Yeah. I really like the Marauder class because I felt like that weapon, not just your front swing, but also when you like your sword cocked back, it still did damage to the enemy.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that shit.
Yeah, and I think I feel like I liked um was it Warrior after? Yeah, I think I like that one a lot. I didn't particularly like any Lance job. I wasn't crazy about Dragoon.
Hmm. Yeah, Lance was okay. I like that it had like a ranged option if you wanted, but
Yeah.
for that I just turned to my Sage.
Yeah, Sage was so fucking cool. I loved playing as a Sage. But yeah, okay. Anything else to talk about with the combat?
Mm.
I don't think so. We already talked about
No, it was
progression
fun.
and
It
our
was fun. I
jobs.
would like to
Yeah.
actually see this combat implemented in more Final Fantasy games. Not all,
Or like,
not like mainline ones, but like, you know.
I mean, they're getting to that point where things are mostly action based now, and I don't know that we're ever gonna see a grand return mainline to something. And not to call this a mainline game, it's very much not. You know, it's they've even in interviews, Inoue has referred to it as a spinoff,
Hmm.
and that's very intended. But like 7 Remake was an action RPG. 16 likely going to be an action RPG.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure yet. We haven't seen enough of it yet, but from the one trailer we did get of it, it looks like it's gunning for a more action. fast-paced combat. So with that all being said, I really liked this combat. I was definitely into it. I was overall really into this game, like I said. The one thing that I did not like about the progression, the thing that I really just hated about the progression, the fucking loot system, man.
Yeah, there shouldn't have been a loot system like this.
I
They should have
mean,
just had set set pieces, set not pieces. They should have just had sets in the way you would in a traditional Final Fantasy for each job. Have different tiers of sets. Like they
yeah,
didn't
like
need to go all out with this. You already have the job system, which was well set out, well thought out, and it played really nicely. And was very satisfying to move through that job system. The
mhm.
loot system, not only is it fucking a waste of time going through all of that shit with all the RNG and all the different affinities and stuff. In order to actually optimize, your character just looks like dog shit because nothing fucking matches. Like
I mean, if you can match sets,
you
you can
can,
do that.
but I'm saying in order to. Well, all right, so you were replaying a bunch of levels, so you probably were getting repeats of the same item with the
Mhm,
thing that
yeah.
you needed. I'm saying for me, when I was going through the game, I was just doing whatever was best in slot,
Yeah, so
and it
there's
just
that
looks
Were you
like
just
feature.
were you just pressing the optimize button?
yeah.
Mhm.
So it just looks
See,
like dog shit.
I
Mhm.
started doing that later because I just wanted to save on time, but for the first half of the game, maybe even more than that, I was picking out each individual. But actually, no, for the majority of the game, like I would go so far as to say 90% of the game, I picked out each individual piece for everyone. And mostly with my party members, though, towards the end, I started just pressing optimize. Jack, I would customize as I wanted, and then everyone else I would just press optimize. And that was towards the very end of the game because I was just getting sick and tired of doing individual setups, especially with your party members. Their gear is very limited in terms of what they actually can equip.
Yeah.
So it just made more sense to optimize them anyway.
It also just takes away satisfaction from the pieces because you're getting the same pieces, these big
Yeah,
badass
well,
pieces over and over and over again
you
with
know,
different roles. And I get it. That's what like I'm a Diablo guy. Like I played a shit ton of Destiny. Like I get how the looter thing works. I just don't feel like it was necessary here.
Yeah.
yeah. And with here you just get so much of it. Like every mission you have to go to the smithy and sell stuff or dismantle stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole system where you get materials and then you can start increasing the stats of individual pieces of equipment or upgrading their affinities or doing this or doing that to individual pieces. But it's like there's barely any object permanence, you know?
Yes.
Right.
The level
I
38.
never upgraded anything the entire game because the entire game I knew like the next mission I was gonna get a new piece to
Right.
put on.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
Delilah, that's what I wanted to bring up with you talking about like you were always like 10 or 20 levels below the mission that you were going into, and I guess that must have been by design. And when you think about it, like you go into that mission, you can kill one enemy and you already get a piece of gear right away basically that's at that level of that
Yeah.
mission. So like you can gear up for a mission pretty quick after entering it, but like it is a little tough when you enter it and you're like 20 levels below.
Mhm.
um so I get that, and it is kind of weird how they balanced it that
and it's
way.
also
Yeah.
very RNG dependent. So like you
Yeah.
might not be getting gear. Like you might have a bunch of lower level gear that has a shit ton of affinity for whatever job you're using. Then you
Mhm.
get the current level gear with almost no affinity.
and
So all of a sudden, even though you geared up, you find you're dealing a whole lot less damage.
and
Yeah.
gear and the rarity system made fucking no sense because like there were times where I would equip a piece of green gear with the same level and same name as a blue piece of gear, but it would have better stats. The
Right.
green one would have better stats, and
Yeah.
it just made no sense.
Yeah.
Well,
um
usually I found a lot of times those like gold ones and shit would have like abilities and stuff
yeah.
like you would inherently get them. You wouldn't have to equip a certain job or whatnot.
Yeah, but like with the fact that so much gear, there again, there's no object permanence. You're
Hmm.
gonna usurp it so quickly. I
Yeah.
never bothered using those or equipping them. I
No,
used one
neither
for
did
a
I.
trophy, and that was it.
Yeah, and then even aesthetically during cutscenes, everything you had on your character looks so silly.
I did do the thing. There's a setting in buried in the I think in the display settings where you can make it so that their headgear doesn't show up in
Okay,
cutscenes,
that would have helped.
or it doesn't show up at all. And yeah, I did that immediately because I didn't want Jack fucking wearing a fedora
Right.
during the goddamn. Which also, Jesus, yeah, some of that gear was just like
This is what
a
I'm saying about the
fedora, really.
aesthetic. Like you couldn't have just designed like it would have even been less work. You wouldn't have had to design as much gear. You just make
Right.
the gear fewer farther apart and therefore more
Or
meaningful
like
because you have to
really
do specific things to get that gear.
Or
Yeah.
really, this game, more than Horizon Forbidden
I
West,
was
to
just
bring us
gonna
back to
say that.
last episode, yeah, this game needed like gear upgrade systems so much more. You buy a broadsword, you can upgrade it like 5 levels or something, and it has affinity towards like the sword fighter job. And then later you can get other swords that you can upgrade a little bit, and like upgrading them is what gives them permanence. You want to hold on to it and upgrade it so that it's better by the end, and it has affinity for this specific job, rather than getting all this ridiculous fucking amount of loot that you wind up having to spend more time deleting than you actually do using it.
Yeah.
It was
Or
too
tie the
much.
or give the items abilities and tie them into the progression system like Final Fantasy IX did. Yay!
You and I don't agree on what 9 did and didn't do well, but anyway, I
You
think
want
we're
to
all.
talk about item permanence? That's how you do item permanence.
Yeah, that's true, but also I'm not going to get into a debate with you
Yeah,
about Final Fantasy 9.
we don't
that's
need
for
to. But
that's for another podcast episode.
basically, all I was getting at was integrate. You need to actually. It doesn't feel like the loot in this game is integrated into the progression, um,
Right. No, it's yeah,
as
I
it should be.
agree.
Yeah,
I mean, I really liked the whole idea of like granting job affinity, and once you get to a certain percent affinity, you get additional like buffs with those jobs. I really liked that
it's
because
just too RNG dependent.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And like I said, you should they it would have, again, not to complain about what the game wasn't, but like this was a really big flaw, and I think it would have been better if you could go to a shop. We see in Cornelia it has shops. There's a weapon shop there when you're able to roam the town. They modeled it. It's there. So it would have been better if you, instead of accumulating loot, you accumulated gil, and you could go and buy a weapon and then upgrade that weapon, and it had certain buffs for certain jobs or a job or whatever, and like that's what dictated what gear you decided to use,
or
not
crafting slash upgrading material that you can either sell for more gil or use to upgrade. Yeah,
which they have, but like there's no point in upgrading stuff that you're going to delete next level anyway.
right.
It's just because there's
Right.
just so much.
So I think this happened after you both beat the game, but they did implement an auto dismantle system where you can
Yeah,
select like what level, and it doesn't really help because you're constantly gaining level where like you'll have to keep getting into, so it's not the best, but it's something. I just want
it's
to say
like
they know it's
the
an issue.
it's like the smallest band-aid on the biggest fucking gash,
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
yeah, that it's keeping the wound a little bit closed, but in the long run it ain't gonna do jack
Right.
shit.
Yeah, it's like you just got slashed by a sword and they take one of those little like circle band-aids that's supposed to go on like a scrape and just try to put it on. Yeah.
Yeah.
As our good friend Jack Garland would say, nothing a little spit can't heal. Um, um, and yeah, so this loot problem also kind of goes into the end game, which I think the end game is actually really cool. I really like the whole idea of running the levels on chaos difficulty, getting crystals to unlock harder difficulties, and then that lets you unlock the caps on your jobs. There's a lot of replayability in this game, and I think it's really cool. It's just the loot problem is just the biggest problem it has. You
Yeah.
know? It's a shame because I like a big part of me wants to play more of this game and dabble in the end game more, and
Yeah.
I do really want to level up all my jobs because I think it's really cool.
The game
And
just it feels disparate to me. Like I love that progression system. I loved that job system. The I I had enough fun with. I mean, I have my problems, but I had fun with the combat. But it's like everything else just felt so disparate and disconnected. I think
Yeah.
at one point I said to you, this game felt like an elongated tech demo. Like they were just experimenting with a bunch of different shit and throwing it at the wall. And then they're
Hmm.
like, "Hey, why don't we just make this a Final Fantasy One prequel?"
I feel
Oh
like, yeah, it
Yeah,
could
no.
have been actually, it would make sense that that's the purpose of the game, to like test this combat system and see if it would
Well,
work.
I don't know about that
I,
because
I, I'm, I'm just,
this was
I'm not saying like I actually think that's what happened. I'm just
no, I
saying that's
just
what it feels like.
and I don't think that's the case purely because this was made by Team Ninja,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
who has made the Neo games, which like I haven't played the Neo games outside of the betas. I played the betas for both of those games, and I like before or when playing this game, I watched some footage of Neo 2 just to remember exactly how that game looked and get an idea for how it played. And yeah, even this game doesn't seem anything like the Neo games in terms
Right.
of how they actually play,
It's
you
also
know?
important to keep in mind the time frame. We don't know um, exactly how long, and I mean, it was announced very shortly before, relatively
Oh,
Yeah.
speaking, before it came out. We don't know if it just had a short development time frame. Maybe if there were issues
yeah.
in that short development time frame. We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like so Neo 2 came out in 2020 and I know Team Ninja developed Dissidia NT, and that came out in 2018. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not really sure when their involvement with this began. Because they've also developed other games in between Neo 2, or I guess only one other game, which was Ninja Gaiden Master Collection. Then they developed some other things prior to Neo 2. So like it's possible they could have been working on this, for before Neo 2. It's possible they could have been started working on it after Neo 2. I'm not really who's to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did find out about it, and then less than a year later, it was out. So
Mhm.
I mean that at least that's commendable, right?
Right.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah. But I think
But
the combat's fun, especially with people. Like if you have a group of friends to
yeah,
play with, I think it's like really, really fun. I didn't play with people that I knew, but I played with like randoms and it was still pretty fun. And I imagine if you played this with friends, it would like accelerate the experience.
yeah,
I mean,
we should.
the thing, and for those who listen to a lot of our episodes know that I wasn't a huge fan of the remake combat, and I made comparisons between that and this. So some might ask, what makes this so much more fun? And for me, I think it's the variety that the job system and the progression system
Mm,
gives to the combat. Things are constantly changing, and you're constantly adapting, and there are so many ways you can play the game.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And you can switch out the classes on a fly. Like you don't have to stay stuck
Yeah.
to one. Like you can literally
yeah,
play all of them at whatever point.
Hey, that sounds an awful lot like. Well, the fact that you can have two equipped at the same time. That sounds an awful lot like loadouts.
Yeah.
Something. Go listen to our Horizon episodes if you want to hear us bitch about that.
Less loot, more loadouts, please. Thanks.
loadout. Yeah, loadouts is a that's a problem all over.
Something I didn't write here in the notes. We didn't really talk about is like the enemy variety. How was the enemy variety to you guys? Did you feel it was enough?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of different types of enemies.
Okay.
Didn't really bother me. I didn't feel like though I had to fight so different against many of them, where it was so noticeable.
Yeah,
You know?
some of the horses really pissed me off because they would have like these they could charge you and do you could even get behind them and they would do a back kick, and like they had a bunch of magic attacks that they could use on you, and those were probably the most frustrating enemies for me to deal with. Oh, actually, the second most frustrating. The first was anytime you had to do a mission where it was like kill 5 master
God,
tonberries,
the fucking tomberries, always
and
in every
yeah,
game.
they are the fucking worst. They're such a cool enemy, but they're also just so dastardly
Hmm.
and evil.
Chef knife.
Um,
Okay, you're dead.
yep. And it had the one attack where it could stun you, and it would just zoom right to you, and if you didn't recover and dodge in time, yeah, you were ganked.
Yeah.
It's a fucking rough time.
Yep.
But yeah, I liked I really liked the ability to take their abilities and use them against them. I really liked that, and I thought it was a pretty good variety.
Yeah. I definitely had fun with the game. It surprised me how fun it was to play.
Yeah. Oh, what was your guys' first boss to have trouble with, like serious trouble with?
The first dragon that let out poison on the ground. I can't remember
What,
what
Tiamat?
was it. Tiamat? I don't know. I thought Tiamat didn't have the poison. I There were two enemies that
There
bosses
was
that have.
it did use a poison attack, but not as much as it used the lightning attack
Yeah,
that it
no,
had,
I don't think it
or the
was
wind
Tiamat.
attack.
Tiamat, I think I was fine with. It
Really?
literally, yeah,
Oh
it was literally the one that like poisoned the entire battlefield.
man. Okay.
I eventually got the hang of it, but like having to avoid the poison puddles because the poison killed like hurt you a lot,
Yeah.
and it didn't like it lasted really long. So you would have to like either keep healing or whatever the case to stay alive.
Yeah.
That was the
Tia
first one.
Tiamat really kicked my ass. Like the first boss is pretty tough. It's like kind of a trial by fire, but if you get
Right.
through it, like you're okay for a while. BK's not too tough. After that, it's the Black Knight at the Western Keep, and then uh, the elemental boss you fight at during the 13 level. I
Mm-hmm.
forget what you fight at the top of the Crystal Tower. But yeah, like everything was fine until I got to fucking Tiamat, and
Mm.
Tiamat. Actually, that whole level, that whole Flying Fortress level, really tested me pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tiamat was just the icing on the cake. Man, that boss kicked my ass.
Yeah.
And
I
it,
really liked the fight with the Kraken. That was probably my favorite boss fight.
yeah, that was a cool one. It had a cool like mechanic where like if it went in the water, you could strike the thing and it would electrocute it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a cool gimmick there.
Yeah.
Jason, you have any bosses you want to bring up, talk about?
No, I mean, I honestly, my favorite boss was the last one.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Cool.
I maybe I don't know how I didn't, given that you guys were doing side quests and leveling up and getting loot and shit. Um, and you seem to have leveled up a lot more jobs than I did. Uh, I didn't find it as hard as you guys did. I actually found it, because it was a one-on-one fight. Probably my least favorite scenarios in this game was when you were just getting ganked by a mob, especially when
Yeah.
in the sections when you're flying solo. Um,
Hmm.
so there'd be like a witch that paralyzes you, and fucking two Goliaths that come down on you, and a bunch of slimes, and a
Mm-hmm.
caterpillar that it's just I guess the term doesn't really apply here because it's not a multiplayer game, but all these crowd control CC effects that are just being applied to you at once, and there's just nothing you can do. Um,
Yeah.
that shit gets annoying. I
I
Hmm.
prefer
like
the one-on-one fights.
I didn't find the last boss hard per se. It didn't take me that many tries. I just felt like what I wanted to play with, I couldn't. And that like at that moment I had to switch up like the strategy
Yeah,
I was comfortable with, and I didn't really like that too much. I felt like like for the last boss, I should be able to pick whatever class I want to pick, not the one that is like most effective against it.
yeah, and that I'm the kind of person that once I start playing as a job, I am not changing it until it's reached max level.
Yeah.
So I went and leveled up all the base jobs before I started on the advanced jobs, and then did all those before I went to the expert jobs. And like by the end, yeah, I was using these expert jobs, some of which are like super specialized, um, but they aren't the most effective. And I was kind of, and this is my own admittedly my own fault, like I struggled on some of these bosses because I refused to change what I was using
Yeah.
in terms of a job. I would go and change my command abilities, I might even change my weapon, but like I wasn't changing my job until I maxed it out.
Yeah.
Like again, I know it's my own fault. That's my own, if that's the mentality I want to use when playing, that's not the game's problem. That's my problem. But
Right.
Mhm.
for a game with so many jobs, yeah, it shouldn't come down to these are the best to use or these are the only ones you really can effectively use during this situation. You kind of want it to be a little more open ended.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes it just didn't feel too open ended. It very much seemed like, yeah, if you're using this job, good fucking luck. Otherwise, if you want to have a better time, use these.
Yeah. Which thankfully
So
you could switch it. Had it been like locked you into a build
yeah,
and
I
that
mean,
build wasn't effective, that would have sucked.
yeah, and at the very least, being able to have two jobs at once, loadouts,
Yeah.
at least that definitely was a saving grace in a lot of situations. If you have Sage equipped and that's not very effective, although God forbid you reach a situation where Sage isn't effective, job fucking rules. You could press triangle and immediately switch to something else that
Yeah.
might be better for the situation you're in.
Yep.
So, anything else we want to talk about before we wrap this bad boy up?
I guess like would you guys recommend this to a Final Fantasy fan? And would you
No.
recommend it to a non-Final Fantasy fan?
A Final Fantasy Final Fantasy fan, no. Non-Final Fantasy fan, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite because the best parts of this game I feel are the homages that it makes to other Final Fantasy games. Like the reason this game was a big reason why this game was so effective for me was because I'm a Final Fantasy fan. I've played most of these games, going through levels and seeing like, holy shit, this is the fire cavern from Final Fantasy VIII, or this is the crystal tower from Final Fantasy III. That I and hearing the musical motifs play, like show up in the
Yeah.
music in those areas, like I dug that a lot. And playing a more action role playing game version of like a lot of these jobs that I'm intimately familiar with, I ate that shit up.
Yeah.
um I feel I think it works best for Final Fantasy fans than for newcomers.
Right. Cause I was thinking like someone's like, oh, I played um Neo and I really love that combat system and Teen Ninja's doing this, but I never play a Final Fantasy game. I don't know who the fuck Garland is. Like, I don't know. Do you think that they would have a good time playing it just based
Well,
off like the gameplay, I
I
guess?
I think if they're a Neo fan, no, because this game doesn't play anything
Yeah.
like Neo.
The
Um
basic mob combat here can get very repetitive. The bosses are really the saving grace, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the
I,
bosses,
I don't know. I
because at the end of the day, the mob combat, a lot of it just gets to get their break thing down, hit circle,
Yeah.
and
I think
yeah.
for so I yeah my answer is the opposite of Jason's, because again the homages really make it for me, but
And look,
also
I appreciate those
no.
homages as well, and I understand where you're coming from. Where like a Final Fantasy, like a hardcore Final Fantasy fan, will definitely get more out of it. But at the same time, I feel like a hardcore Final Fantasy fan is also expecting more out of this.
But also I wouldn't want to subject a newcomer to this game specifically because it might Final
Give
Fantasy
an
one of
idea of what Final Fantasy is.
the well, yeah, I mean, yes, but in a less aggressive way, I guess. Because like Final Fantasy games are known and renowned largely for their plot, for
Mm,
for their storytelling, and this game's biggest weakness is its storytelling.
mhm,
By the end, yeah, the story's like pretty cool. It has like some neat moments, but it's only really at the end.
I mean, you can barely really, if your defining story is like the meshing of characters, setting, and plot, like it's almost barely can be called the story.
Right,
It's
and
like,
that's kinda what I'm getting at. I don't wanna if a newcomer wants to get into the series, no, this is not the first game I would tell them to go play, because it doesn't have most of the things that really make Final Fantasy Final Fantasy. Not to say that I don't think this is
yeah.
a Final Fantasy game, but, like, it's not the best example of one for a newcomer to get into the series.
I guess which is why I say maybe, like, because you might be into the combat, you might be into the progression, you might even be one of those loot nuts that's so about that treadmill that
Yeah.
you'll put up with
right.
the shitload of same looking armor that they'll give you that marginally improves things every 5 minutes. Like,
Mhm.
but yeah, on the whole, it's not terrible, not great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I enjoyed some time with it, but
Okay.
I guess I can't say all good things come. I don't know.
Delilah, that was an excellent final question, so I'm gonna leave that with the as the final question.
Oh, okay. Did you have one? I forgot.
I did. I was
We
just
already kind
like,
of answered it in the
Oh,
beginning.
really. We really did. Um, but yeah, I think that was a great final question.
yeah.
Anything else to?
Oh, I gotta score it.
Well, yeah, I know. I just is there anything else we want to talk about before we get to the Kwasnicki rating and wrap it up?
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
All right, Jason, what's the Kwasnicki rating?
5 chocobos out of 10.
Damn, there's not even a
I
chocobo
was
in this
gonna say,
game.
I was gonna say they're gonna say like 5
That's why I
chaos.
chose. That's why I chose chocobos. It's because that is average,
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
not any degree bad, not any degree good.
You
Average.
know, where there's chocobos, there's chaos.
Exactly.
Um, Delilah, what are you doing? What are you working on?
I've just been streaming Ghostwire Tokyo. Uh
Oh, how is that? Do you like it?
it's it's a game. It's
Yeah, I've heard some things.
it's like
Yeah.
got a cool horror aesthetic, but gameplay wise it's so like open world checklist kind of thing, which I'm
Yeah.
kind of really tired of already.
Yeah.
But the
It's
aesthetic's cool for
it's
sure.
funny. I was like people were getting excited for that game and I was never really sold on it.
The aesthetics, like the enemies, reminded me a lot of Fatal Frame, which is why I was kind of like intrigued by it because it has those like classic horror
Yeah.
Japanese like yokai,
Mhm.
whatever, onis. But I thought it was gonna be scary. It's not. It's just an action adventure game with that kind of skin. So
Yeah, I never thought it was gonna like even from that first trailer, I was like, this isn't really what I want from Tango.
nah,
Um,
definitely not.
which
Yeah.
is like it's weird for me to say because I really hated The Evil Within,
Oh,
but The Evil Within 2
yeah,
like is amazing. It's like the biggest one of the biggest like improvements game to game that I've ever seen in my opinion. I really loved The Evil Within 2.
yeah,
So when they revealed Ghostwire Tokyo, I was just like, huh?
yeah,
This doesn't look scary. And then when they finally showed more of the combat and did that state of play, like showing what you're going to be doing, I was like, this doesn't look like a horror game at all.
yeah. I mean,
And
what is cool about it, I'll say, this isn't a podcast about Ghostwire, but
yeah.
it does teach you a lot about Japan. Like you'll learn about like the different like convenience stores items and different like
Oh.
items that are like, like that people have on like shrines in their apartments and stuff like that. So it is more about like Japan than anything.
So what you're saying is if I play it, I'm going to get a giant nostalgia trip.
I think so, yeah,
That
definitely. But it's
that
only in the notes, right? So you gotta like collect shit.
you almost sold me. You almost sold me.
Well,
All
you
right.
could just go play Yakuza because those are all on
That's
You
sale.
true. You
listen.
could just go play Yakuza.
This like doesn't have the funny side missions like Yakuza, but it definitely has some quirky ones, but not
Okay.
on the level of Yakuza. Yakuza is like it's in its own field
Yeah,
when it comes
you're
to
not
that.
gonna run into a basement full of adult men wearing diapers in Ghostwire Tokyo.
No, but you do have to. I don't want to spoil it if you do plan to
Okay.
play it, but you do have to do some stuff
And
that's
don't tell
weird.
me, and don't tell me you can't do turn-based RPGs because Yakuza did it like a dragon. Some
True.
turn-based gang warfare right there.
Yeah, exactly. And I hear it's
So
better that way.
you're streaming Ghostwire.
Yeah, I have my full playthrough of Elden Ring is on YouTube. It's still releasing. I finished it, but each episode because I'll play for like 6 hours on stream and then cut it up for YouTube so that it's more
Yeah.
digestible on there. So that's coming out soon. You'll see the last boss, and it'll be done forever. But yeah, till then I'll be just streaming on Twitch, Ghostwire Tokyo, and probably GTA San Andreas and maybe Dying Light 2 if I could get somebody to play with me. But it's kind of like backlog season at this point. Now that Elden Ring's over, nothing feels substantial, really.
There's a hole in your heart.
There is a hole in my heart, yeah.
You follow at Assassina
_san
or -san depending on the platform.
Yeah.
Jason, you doing anything?
I am playing the next game that we're going to talk about.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get to that. I'll keep plugging it as long as I'm doing it. I write the weekly newsletter for From Gamers Magazine. You can go to fromgamers.net/newsletter and sign up for that. It's just a, five news stories of the week. I do like a release calendar at the end and keep you updated on my life. So if you want to, have something to read every Friday morning, go ahead and fromgamers.net/newsletter, sign up for that.
Nice.
Yeah, and I got a bunch of other shit that I really need to get on doing, but more on that another time. You can follow me on Twitter at Nibelheimian. You can follow Delaila on Twitter at Assassina_san. You can follow Jason on Twitter at SolidQuaz, but do not follow him. He doesn't use it. He forgets that he has a Twitter until he does the show with us, and I remind him.
Yeah.
If you liked this show, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Please, 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 please give us a thumbs up. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you didn't like. Tell us what fucking favorite job yours was. Tell us how much chaos you wrought in the fucking Stranger of Paradise.
Ninja.
the weeb jobs.
I mean, honestly, it's just because I know all the moves because the names are the same from 14.
He knows all the moves, ladies.
All my mujas. I know all my Tenchi Jin combos.
If you're watching on YouTube, share the show, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, tell your pets, tell your parents, tell your whoever else is in your life. Tell everybody, tell random people on the sidewalk outside in the towns and world. Who cares? Let them know about Reap the Spoils. If you're watching or listening on Apple Podcasts, once again, thank you. Please rate and review the show. 5 stars preferred. It really, really helps, guys. Please do it. I know a lot of you listen to this show, and we don't have a review from each and every one of you. I can look at the numbers. I can do a compare and contrast.
Especially if you're someone that listens consistently. We want to know.
Yeah, we want to know. We want to know you.
Especially if you're someone who's got something to say.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, if you're someone that's got something to say, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Please rate and review the show. 5 stars preferred. Tell us what you like, tell us what you didn't like. And if you listen on Spotify and everything else, thank you again. There's no way for you to leave us feedback there, which is okay. Just we really appreciate the support. Jason, what's our next episode on?
Mass Effect 2, folks.
Yeah.
Suicide Mission.
Oh, okay. Is that the music that plays during that?
Yes, that is the Suicide Mission theme.
Oh, okay. I don't fucking know. I haven't played this goddamn game yet.
I keep forgetting that you've never played it.
Yeah. Go listen to it. So
now Delilah's obsessed with it.
It's so good.
We played Mass Effect 1 a couple months ago.
Delilah got obsessed with it and wants to continue it, so we're gonna continue it, folks.
Yeah,
I've already played all the games, so I'm waiting for these guys so we could talk about it.
I already know, but I gotta play through for posterity.
She was the last person to finish Stranger of Paradise, but she was the first person to finish the entire trilogy out of all of us.
It's one of my favorite trilogies ever, honestly. It became that.
All right. Well, yeah, you heard it here, folks. Go if you haven't played the first one, go play that and then listen to our episode on it. And then
I bought an N7 hoodie. Okay, sorry.
Well, guess what, suckers? I have the fucking vinyl soundtrack, surprising absolutely no one.
Go.
So
speaking, if you find the Elden Ring soundtrack, hit me up right away. I don't care what time it is.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
That's another thing I should have brought up about Stranger of Paradise. within a week, I was the proud owner of 3 copies of that game.
Oh my god, how?
Within the first week of it coming out, because I got it at Best Buy for the Steelbook. Then I bought a copy from GameStop for the stupid hat. I have the hat,
Damn.
and I bought the PlayStation 5 Collector's Edition from Japan so I could get the vinyl record.
Damn. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I liked the game. I thought the game was great. It's not it's not perfect, but it's fun. All right. But anyway, yeah. Mass Effect 2 next month. Join us then. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.